not only has the New South Wales Premier been widely praised for most of her courageous decisions during this pandemic, it's been her powers of persuasion today that have moved the immovable. Remember what the Treasurer said. This is last night on this program about an approach from the New South Wales Treasurer for additional financial assistance.
The Commonwealth Government has been there constantly, consistently for the people of New South Wales. We've already delivered more than $52 billion in support, whether it was the JobKeeper program, the cash flow boost, the $750 payments to pensioners, veterans and carers and others on income support. And in this lockdown, we are providing payments of either $500 or $325 a week to those workers who have lost hours as a result of the health restrictions.
For the second week of lockdown only. That was what Josh thought. It only took two conversations with the Prime Minister for Gladys Berejiklian to predict a special lockdown rescue deal was on its way.
We are leaving the door open to receiving additional support in that regard from the Commonwealth. What I really appreciate and thank the Commonwealth for acknowledging is that the success of our nation depends on the success of New South Wales. We have borne the burden during COVID. We've kept this virus at bay for 18 months and we have contributed to Australia doing as well as it has. But moving forward, we also do rely on the Commonwealth and the state working together to get us through this very difficult challenge.
And it's a fair argument. No other state, no other territory has taken the risk with hotel quarantine quite like New South Wales. The vast majority of Australians returning home, including those heading to other states, were accepted by New South Wales in their hotels. But of course, only last month, Victoria was refused its request to have a revival of JobKeeper to protect businesses and jobs during their fourth lockdown. Now, to be fair, the Treasurer did come some way. He enacted a $325 to $500 disaster payment, but for only the second week of lockdown. And today, that was extended and improved. Gladys was basically rewarded for those 15 months carrying the load for the rest of the country with a loosening of key COVID support criteria.
It doesn't matter what funds you've got available to you otherwise in your bank account or that you can readily convert to cash. Recognising that we're not just dealing with a 1 week period or 2 week period here, that this is now going into a third week and with further decisions to be taken. Commonwealth recognises that and the liquid access tests will not apply to access to those payments. The second thing we'll be doing is extending the mutual obligation waiver that applies in the Sydney metropolitan area in relation to welfare supports of payments, social security payments. In addition, after discussion with the Premier, the federal government will be bringing forward an additional 300,000 extra doses, and particularly to see those targeted towards the areas of outbreak, and that is especially in southwestern Sydney, and to target particularly those who are most vulnerable in the community.
Now, the payments, they're just a morsel. The vaccines are greatly needed, but it's a symbolic recognition for what New South Wales has done and what that state is now suffering, which will apply, of course, for other jurisdictions as well. Hopefully no jurisdictions get into another lockdown and into the third week. The Prime Minister expressed how crucial the New South Wales economy and the state's health was to the rest of the country.
This is an iterative process. There are shifting sands when it comes to the evolution of this issue, and we're working very cooperatively and positively together because, let me be clear, what is happening in Sydney just doesn't have implications for Sydney. What is happening in Sydney has very serious implications not only for the health of Sydney-siders, but also for the economy of Sydney, but also the economy of New South Wales and indeed the national economy. And that's why it's absolutely imperative that in this phase we're in now, the suppression phase, that we work together to ensure that we can suppress this latest outbreak as effectively as we possibly can.
So, of today's 38 new cases in New South Wales, 12 had been mixing in the community whilst infected, and that trajectory is slightly rising. That was not good news, of course, for the New South Wales Chief Health Officer, who did try today to show that she understood the pain of lockdown.
The assessment was that we needed this lockdown. We had tried everything, and when, as quickly as, once we got a sense that we'd missed some unrecognised chains, we acted to try and lock down as little as a number of people as we could, with still a massive impact. And then immediately the next day, when we were clear that there was spread outside and that containment strategy was not going to work, moved to lockdown. There is at no point I don't understand the impact of a lockdown. I think from the get-go on the journey, I've certainly talked to you about my understanding of the importance of the impacts on young people, casualised workers, and people's mental health. We have tried to learn about how we can give people outdoor exercise, outdoor recreation, in order to mitigate some of those impacts. And look, the vast majority of people are doing the right thing. And I don't think anyone is really blatantly not doing the right thing. I think we do have to, through the media, get the clear messages.
So, maybe it's worth reminding both New South Wales officials and those in the hotspot districts of what's at stake when lockdowns are enacted. Despite all the great jobs figures, livelihoods have been smashed, and they continue to be. According to ASIC, Australia has recorded 5,517 business liquidations just in the past financial year. That doesn't include the beginning of the pandemic. That doesn't include the figures to come for last month. It's staggering, 5,517, which at that rate will likely bring the financial year total to over 6,000. The figures on suicide too are just as staggering. In Victoria alone, according to Your Town's Kids Helpline, attempted suicide rates among teenagers skyrocketed by 184% in the past 6 months. Emergency interventions nationally, they rose by 99% in that same 6-month period. Australians are COVID fatigued. And it's not just about being locked down, it's about the damage that they wrought to livelihoods, people's anxiety and their entire future. The full delivery of these vaccines cannot come quick enough.
Right now, we are catching up considerable time. At the rates we're now achieving, at some 1 million vaccinations almost a week, that will ensure, if we can keep that pace up and the supply lines hold, and the supply lines are firming, not weakening, then every Australian who wishes to have a vaccine by the end of the year, it is our intention, based on the advice of Lieutenant General Fruin, that will be possible. And I think that's where we need to be. That would only put us 2 months back from where we would have otherwise hoped to have been. And so the vaccination rate that you're seeing right now, and what might have otherwise been the case at this time, would have still required a suppression strategy right now. And to suggest otherwise is just completely and utterly false.
I think the Prime Minister could argue that point over and over again, and he needs to. Now, I'll be getting my second jab of AstraZeneca this weekend. The odds of side effects with this vaccine are far longer than many of the medicines we're prescribed every year. Whether we like it or not, it is our only pass out of this.